All right. Welcome to the Game Changers podcast.
All right.
Our first actual episode, and we hope to do many more. My name is David Spierer, and I'm here with Stu Burton. And let's take a moment to just introduce ourselves to our listeners and tell them why we're here. One of the reasons why we're here is because we're quarantined. So we are now in our homes, and we figured that this would be an excellent way to get, good information out there. Um, so my background is in applied physiology, and I've worked with a lot of different populations, people with cardiovascular disease and pulmonary disorder, spinal cord injury, traumatic brain injury, things of that nature. I've also had my stint in bodybuilding for a very short time as a senior at the University of Albany.
Yeah.
And, and then later on, I really got more into the physiology of the human, um, you know, the human body and how kind of sports science and exercise science affects us every day. Um, studying things like heart rate recovery and studying various types of aspects of heart rate variability and all of these kind of training techniques that we hear about today. So for a while, I had my own lab, was doing my own research, and I became a professor about 15 years ago, and had been, teaching at Long Island University in Brooklyn for about 8 of those years. And after about roughly 8 years, I moved out to Phoenix, Arizona. My wife is a physician, and we moved out here. And I've been teaching online with LIU for about the last 6 years, but also been keeping up, obviously, on all of the things related to applied physiology and exercise science. So, I have kind of a vast background in that area. And my co-host Stu Burton, probably some of you know him because he comes with a lot more cachet than I do. I'm going to let him speak a little bit about his background and tell you guys a little bit about himself.
Hey, everybody, how you doing? My beginnings start at a very, very young age. I've been involved in bodybuilding and training people for almost 40 years. Now I've competed with the NPC Amateur Division, IFBB, for my pro card, and we developed a training institution, Iron and Silk, located in Lower East Side, 3rd Street. And what we do there is basically programming. We work with all walks of life. From the very young to the very old, a lot of entertainment industry, a lot of bodybuilders. But the main thing is bridging that gap between science and actually doing a lot of the work that's inside of the gym. And I've had great mentors over the year: Leon Brown, Harold Poole, John Acabelli, Tommy Abar. Some of you will know those names. A lot of you will not know those names. Victor Martinez, Jerry Brainham. These are some of the people that are still current, that are working today. Ming Chu, and we're going to be bringing you guys real concrete information. So I think this is going to be something pretty amazing. It's one of the first times we're going to actually have a strong, solid science background with bridging that gap again into what's really happening inside of the gyms in the moment, how people are trying to find their way, what are the things that are missing, and how we can bring a better level of attention to what it is that they need. Also, with the coronavirus going on, what are some of the things we want to do while we are stuck inside our homes? And right now is the time to honestly address your health. We have a very busy society. It doesn't always give us the opportunities to focus on our health, focus on ourselves. Fitness is one of those really beautiful things that continue to give. Understanding how to work with your body allows you to start to give information to people that are in your family, branching out, helping others. So that's why we're here. We want to make sure that we could get as much concrete info into your hands as possible.
Yeah, I think that's a great introduction. And, one of the reasons that we're doing this, again, I think Stu alluded to it, is to bring the science to what it is that Stu does every day. So, he is going to be able to bring the real experience of what it is to strength train and bodybuild. In today's society, we're also going to bring in some people who, have kind of been through it in the 1970s and the 80s, and what it was like for them, how they used their techniques, or how they used their techniques back then, and how those things apply now, and what the science is behind that. And, that's going to be my role, is going to be a little bit more of a moderator, from the scientific standpoint, and asking questions that, hopefully these guys will be able to really answer in a way that provides, a very real experience. So they're not just going to be talking secondhand; they're going to be talking firsthand. These are the things that they actually went through when they were training, and I'm sure people have a lot of questions, maybe that I don't have. So I welcome those as well. This is going to be a call-in show as much as it's going to be a show with guests on. We're going to have some very, very well-known guests, I would say, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
People who you will recognize
Yeah,
the
yeah.
name.
Bill Grant. Bill's going to be on here. I just texted him, so Bill is excited about coming on. So we're going to have some very good people that can really shed light. You get an idea, seeing some of the things that they're doing, and more importantly, again, bring a better sense of awareness. Try and get better information out. That's really the key. There are a lot of people out here talking a lot of things, and it's good.
Yeah.
It's all good. We have a lot to say as well, and we believe we can really set the record straight with a lot of things that are happening today.
Yeah, and I also think that, the show will be kind of topic driven. So we'll have various topics that we'll be talking about. We would, from any listeners who would be interested in hearing about a certain topic related to strength training or bodybuilding or
Absolutely, yeah.
fitness or health, we would love to
Please,
cover that and bring on guests who,
please.
who are well known in that area. So it's not just the things that we want to talk about, but it's what you want to hear as well. So we're here to, like Stu said, push out really good information, but also to listen to the people who are listening to this podcast, to make it a little bit more rich, and to give you guys information on the topics that interest you. I think that's the
Absolutely,
really important
absolutely.
part.
I've always loved getting questions and scenarios. So again, something like this, being stuck inside an apartment. Um, the beginning of my training was very, very humble. So back in those days when I started, you had to clean barbells off the floor, lie down with them on the bench, press them, roll them off to the side. I mean, it was very, very different. And my starting gym was Sheridan Square. Once I left my home gym where my dad had developed, and training there, we had guys like Chris Dickerson. He was Mr. Olympia. He would train inside that gym. I remember Night of the Champions 4, Robbie Robinson came in. We had a lot of great bodybuilders. Danny Padilla came. So it was a very good environment to come up in, and also a really rich and form building time, because
Yeah.
there wasn't a lot. So you had to have a very good understanding of the basics. Also, it was much smaller culture of training that you saw what people were really doing. It was just concrete. It was very basic. It
Yeah.
gave you an understanding of why you would do a certain exercise, the type of purpose that you bring to the movement, and not just, well, jump from here, jump there, and go all around. So we want to give as much of that out to you as possible, and as much as you want to ask, please feel free. That's what we really want to get. I want to get as much information from you people as possible. Questions, excuse me, and we'll give out that information the
Yeah.
best of our ability.
I think that's a great point. And just to make an analogy there, you bring up foundations, and you bring up kind of working in an environment where you have to be creative. That
Right.
is for sure this kind of environment, right? We're
Yeah.
stuck at home. You've got what you've got, and then you have to make that work.
Yeah.
that also is true in science and research, especially, when I was coming through school. The techniques that we were using to measure certain things were very, very archaic. They were very remedial in the sense that they were not
Mm,
automated. So,
mm.
for instance, Fitbits and Apple Watches did not exist. So,
Right.
a machine was not taking your heart rate.
Right.
You were most likely
Right.
doing it, by touching someone.
Correct.
There were heart rate monitors out there, but they were, they
Correct.
weren't that super accurate. But also, measuring somebody's aerobic ability was done by hand. It wasn't done with
Right.
an automated system. It wasn't done automatically. So, it's those kinds of things you think back, you sort of think back to those times, and it really makes you appreciate what it is you had to do in order to get those results, whether it be
Right.
bodybuilding, strength training,
Right.
I don't care, endurance training, being a better rower, it doesn't matter.
Right.
If you have those foundational principles, you can then apply them to any kind of
Correct.
environment,
Correct.
and you can be creative in that environment to get the best results possible.
Correct. Correct. I'd like to add that it's a very just a very very good jumping off point. Something as simple as just knowing how to check your pulse. These things are today everybody's using watches and things like that, but not many people know how to really just check their pulse. To see what's happening. Also what we would always call in bodybuilding, developing an eye, understanding what it is you're looking at. If you don't know, you see someone walking down the street with these amazing arms. Well, are the arms amazing because they're truly amazing, or are they amazing because the body parts surrounding the area, the chest, the back, are not that amazing? So you start to look at things very, very differently, and you start to understand how you want to really put movements together, how you want to execute those movements. We're going to delve into all of those things, because those things are really what make up the bedrock of my training that we do.
Yeah.
We bring a lot of the finer nuances, the things that most people are not aware of and are not getting from information that's around or available to them.
Right.
That's something right now that's a lost form. That's something that doesn't exist in abundance at what time it was more prevalent. Now you don't really have it anymore. So we want to try and bring all of those things to the table.
Yeah. You bring up an interesting point, and I'm going to speak directly to you as opposed to just the audience. But, you're a teacher, just like I'm a teacher, right? Your
Correct.
teaching is done in your facility. My teaching is done in a classroom. It doesn't really
Correct.
matter. We're both
Correct.
teachers. When a teacher is passionate about something that they know a lot about, or that they've gone through in kind of in a firsthand experience type of way,
Yes.
they are able to then impart that information much more concisely and in a much clearer way than an
Absolutely.
individual who just reads from a textbook.
Oh, absolutely.
Or right. So that's a really important part. You even
Absolutely.
said, like, you bring the nuance to the training, the
Yeah.
things that you do in your facility, and the information that you give your clients is not from a textbook. It's from
Correct.
firsthand experience, and
Correct.
it's through a passion. If you
Correct.
don't have the passion, then your explanation falls short. You
Oh,
may
absolutely.
know as much as anybody in the entire world, but if you don't have the passion when you deliver it, it falls
Right.
short.
Right. Right.
If you have the passion but don't know what you're talking about, then comes through. It does come through, but then people
Right.
question it and they realize you don't know what you're talking about.
Right. 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 You're giving the wrong information.
Yeah, but you've got both. You give the right information
Thank you, Dave. Thank
based
you.
on firsthand experience, and you have the passion when you deliver it. So it
Well,
comes through with a bang.
I want to just cut you off for a second right there. I want to cut you off for a second. One of the things that are really important, before I forget, but is that I think it's very important to understand where we fail at the things that we like and the things that we love. You see, most people will get locked into weight training is the best, yoga is the best. If you can't see the flaws, where the gaps lie with the things that you tend to like or that you hear being touted as great and where you want to gravitate to, if you can't see the flaws, if you haven't experienced the flaws, you're not really breaking that discipline down and truly understanding it. The real truth comes from understanding that, you know what, the truth of the matter is, weight training can serve us all, but doesn't mean it's going to be approached or applied in the same way. Everybody is unique. You cannot come in and say a squat is the best exercise. Squat is the best exercise for the person that can do it properly and get the most from it. If somebody is lacking in some way or form or function, they have an injury, you have to go to something that's going to get that person the best of what it is that they need. And then understanding that implementing other aspects of physical fitness, exercise, wellness is also important, because we're not one trick ponies. This is a very amazing machine, the human body.
Right.
So we have to understand that, for athletes, I've seen guys that are coming that look amazing, that look great. And we say, you know what this person needs is, they need to continue their weight training, but they need to implement more stretching.
Right.
They need to do a little bit more of this. Sometimes the thing that you really don't want to believe you need is the thing that you actually need to be doing a little bit more, because that's where the weak link lies,
Yeah. And the balance is what brings those things together, right? And in a similar fashion, this show is going to be about balance. We're not going to talk about
It's always about trying to create balance.
Right.
And balance is not a straight line. It's a line that goes up and down. And it's about understanding that you're going to have those ups and those downs.
Right.
But again, it's knowing that, you're not going to get locked into any one thing. Your spectrum of thought of mind must be broad. It has to be broad.
Right.
And I also believe it's also very important to have very good mentors like myself. I've been extremely fortunate. I've had some amazing mentors over the years, and that's what's allowed me to lecture at LIU. Which is a great opportunity. We have a program that we're developing that will be out soon, and these things are very, very important. Taking those ideas, understanding the pitfalls, the highs, the lows, and then how do you plug each one into where it really needs to be?
For sure.
That's where I get the fun.
Yeah. And those mentors, they provide information, again, that's based on experience.
Yeah.
Their information is, hey, here's where I failed, or here's what to look at, or here's what's really important about this. So you don't know that sort of by yourself. You know that because your mentors have kind of, gone through that process with
absolutely
you
absolutely
really,
absolutely
really kind of hammered that into you and into your own experience, and then you pass that on.
At my gym, I constantly am talking about, when I'm working with clients, the guys that have helped me, the athletes that have helped me, because we're only here because we had people that came before us. All of those guys and women we owe respect to. They paved the way.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's in any industry, right? It's the same thing.
Every single industry.
There's
all of those.
Be a pioneer.
Oh my God!
Right.
It's very, very important. So we have to. Go ahead, David. You go. I'm sorry.
I was going to say what's interesting is that, even though there's pioneers and that they sort of paved the way as we're talking about it, that is true. But then people come up with their own interpretations of what they need to do, right? And then those things. I use martial arts as an analogy, right? So, thousands of years ago, there were let's say Shaolin monks who were practicing, certain forms and certain arts. And then over the course of thousands of years, there's been different interpretations of those arts, whether it be, Taekwondo, Hapkido, Wing Chun, it doesn't matter what it is. There's always various interpretations. And then, those get distilled, down over time. But what you can't lose is the foundational principles of why they're being done and how they're being done. I understand that there can be various interpretations in the way you move, but the foundational principles of why the form is being done, how the form is being done, needs to be pretty solid. And
absolutely,
I think the same thing goes for, working with your body, strength training, whatever.
It goes with anything. It goes, listen, the basics are this. Whether it was just a championship fight that just took place. And obviously one person won and one person lost. And the individual that lost, founding, again, foundation, basics, boxing. You have to understand the basics of boxing.
Sure.
You may have a gift. You may have something that just shines and has been shining for you. But if you live on that shine and don't realize that at some point in time you might have to drop back to that foundation,
Sure.
you stand a chance of losing. So it's always important. I also come from a music background, so when you are you're learning scales or you're practicing your rudiments as a drummer and things like these are things that you need to know.
Yeah.
And because what's going to happen is you're going to get into situations where sticking patterns as a drummer, you're going to have to understand that it's going to make certain rhythms easier if you understand those rudiments.
Right.
And then you can start to implement it. It's not that you're going to do them all the time,
right?
But it's the way how you do them and understanding there is a purpose for them.
Yeah.
So we want people to understand that, being consistent, one of the things I see a lot of people do is they start a training regimen and then they just start training hard.
Sure.
They don't understand progression.
I agree. Right.
They don't understand phases. Yeah. And this is the quickest way to get into a program that you're going to quit. You'll never complete it.
Or you might injure yourself.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
So you want to understand consistency comes first.
Yes.
Not absolutely. Intensity.
Totally agree with you.
You have to get to the gym. You have to pick up the weights. You have to create that desire to want to do this 2 days out of the week. Yeah. And then over the course of weeks, you then try and do 3 days out of the week. Yeah. And in a progressive way, because the body and the mind go together.
Absolutely. Getting to a facility or a gym is about, like you said, consistency.
Absolutely.
If that person could literally, in earlier times, drive there and leave their home. But if they could drive there and get there, well, it shows a little bit of commitment, a little bit of motivation. Then you have to walk in the door. Let them do that twice a week. Then the next week they get there, they walk in the door. Then the next week they walk in the door, they lift the weight. Like that is, I agree with you. With anything.
I'm not to cut you off again. I would really like to talk a lot about the mental aspects.
Yeah, for sure.
Actually of training, because to be very honest, that's why most people can't get through training regimens.
That is right.
They don't understand the purpose. Right. They have not made a purpose clear enough to themselves.
Right.
That they see why they want to continue to go forward with something that may challenge them. As humans, we really don't like to be challenged, and certain people start to develop the knack to understand challenge and then to engage it.
Yes.
And to get through. And this is something that that needs to be discussed.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I've always said that often people kind of stop their routines because it does take a physical effort, because it is difficult. And we often do take the path of least resistance. And I think it is really important to understand that there is there's kind of a threshold there. If you can break through that threshold, you can get to sort of that next phase.
Right.
And also if you think about it, listen, we're only into the new year, 3 months at this point, right? And at this point now, forget coronavirus. Let's say coronavirus was not in our lives right now. Most people would be dropping out of the gym.
Right.
And gyms love this, because they sign up everybody for their memberships.
Right.
Memberships, and then all those people leave. So now they have a lot of space in the gym, but they have the membership, so they have the revenue. And it is very true. I mean that, within the first 3 months, there's a huge fall off of memberships. Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that you said, you just mentioned that they don't have a purpose. Maybe their purpose is to lose weight in 2 months. Maybe their purpose is to look good for spring break, but that is not why you do this.
Right.
Right.
Correct.
The purpose has to be much greater than
greater than that.
Yes, it's got to
Much
be. It
greater than
has to
that.
be almost like, I hate
Absolutely.
to say it, but it's got to be like a spiritual journey in a way.
Absolutely, it is a spiritual journey.
Otherwise,
One of the guys that I admired the most was a guy named Tom Platz,
mhm,
and just listening to Tom Platz talk, the way that he started to speak about training,
right,
and his journey, and athletes were doing this. A lot of people want to say, oh, there's such a sense of awareness now, and people are, but you had guys that were doing that back in the 70s,
right,
and
right,
probably even before that I don't know about. It's in the character of the human, I think, to have that, but to tap into it,
right,
to exercise it, to bring it out, to bring it to the forefront so that it can help you achieve, your physical goals. That's where a lot of people, I think, have a hard time with. People come in and say, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds because I want to make so and so jealous.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
that's not going to work.
No, it's not.
That's not going to work. After the first 2-3 weeks of real training that
Yeah,
you lay down,
yeah,
and that pain starts to increase from the workouts, or the soreness, and people quit,
they do.
or they
Yeah,
do get into shape, but then after that person they don't get that high that they expected to get from making
right,
this person feel jealous or whatever.
right.
And then for most, they lose it. It's a very, very small few continue on, but the majority will not.
Well,
You know,
you make a point. You say a very small, few people continue on. I mean, take a look at the, percentages of overweight and obesity in this country.
right,
That is an exact. It's a perfect example of how people are inactive.
right,
How
right,
most of the population is extremely inactive, and that's
right,
because it does take physical effort. It takes, it's difficult. It's soreness. It hurts a little bit. Um, People just don't want that. I mean, it's much
right.
easier to sit down with a bag of chips and a couple of sodas, in front of your
Hmm.
TV or whatever you're
Hmm.
doing,
Hmm.
than to put your body through that kind of rigor.
Right.
Um, but so everything we're talking about, I think, is, what people want to hear. And I think that this is the kind of show this is going to be. It's going to be a conversation among the two of us, as well as our guests and, people who call in and have questions. And I think
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
going to be enlightening for all of us, because I'm sure some listeners are going to bring up, ideas and topics that are going to be really hard for us to grapple with. But there's also going to be, there's going to be education that's going to kind of come from us as well, that we can
Right.
impart to our listeners.
Yeah.
So it's always a two-way street. We're
Yes.
not here to profess that, hey, you got to learn from us. I mean, that's
Right.
not
Right.
what
Right.
this is
That's not it.
about.
No.
This is really about learning from both sides. And I'm really excited to start this and have some guests on and, get this going. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So am I,
um,
Dave. And working with you has always been, I have to say, amazing. I mean, you're just on a whole nother level altogether,
well, I,
altogether.
I
So
appreciate that
so so
very much.
so I feel very 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 honored to be doing this with you.
And I feel the same way. I feel the same way. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna end our first podcast with just these words. We're gonna be starting in the next week or so. We really want some listeners to call in. We're gonna have some really great guests, talk about some really cool topics. Like I said, if you guys have any questions or topics that you want to hear about, you can then send us an email either at david@wellnessroundtable.com or Stuart
You could send it to the team at ironandsilkfitness.com,
and
and is
spell out
spelled out.
and
Yes,
AND
yeah.
team
So,
at ironandsilkfitness.com. We'll be listening and we'll see you in about a week. All right. Take
all right,
care.
everyone, take care. Bye bye.